Evening settles over Cedar Hollow Estate as the ballroom hums. A glass on the nearest table ticks against its stem, then shivers again, and the napkins lift like small white flags. Most guests smile it off as a stray gust from the open doors. But a few veterans shift their feet, shoulders squaring the way muscle memory teaches. When something bigger edges into the room, the slideshow keeps rolling in the corner with soft music and old faces, while the air changes in a way you feel first in your ribs and only later in your head. The camera drifts across puzzled looks and half poses held too long for photos. You notice the way conversation thins, the way the air unit seems to pause for a beat, the way a draft slips under the tablecloth and does not leave. No one names it, but every small sound now lands a little heavier. And the veterans keep watching the doors with the quiet focus of people who have learned to listen. If the past walked through these doors tonight, what would you do? The ballroom at Cedar Hollow Estate hums with polite noise and soft lighting. At the center stands a tight circle of four that people drift toward without being asked. Blake Turner lists sales in neighborhoods like trophies, while Madison Shaw holds her phone high. Hunting angles? Colin Price listens like a chess player, and Trevor Lang scrolls the Cascade State University class of 2015 list as if it were a live market feed. They spot Emily Hart on the list and talk tilts toward a before and after story for the feed. Madison nudges the idea into a joke, then into a hook, then into a bet that Emily will not show. Blake's laugh runs a little louder than the room. Trevor tallies nods with a thumb, and Colin's half-smile approves the odds without saying them out loud. People around them lean in, drawn by volume, posture, and the glow of a camera that promises attention to anyone who plays along. At the edge, Ethan Morales, USMC retired, watches the pattern take shape and says nothing, weight shifting just enough to show a trained habit of scanning a room. Nora Bennett feels the old ache rise as she remembers high school lunches where Emily sat alone and no one moved, including her. The slideshow flickers on in the corner while the circle at center grows tighter. Smiles sharper, voices brighter. The rope of the evening stretches thinner with every laugh, and you can hear the fibers start to sing. At Maple Crest High, Emily Hart walked tight to the hallway paint, jacket hanging past her wrists, shoes quiet on the tile. When noise pressed in, her right thumb tapped the inside of her left wrist, a small beat that kept her steady. She moved like someone who knew the blind spots between lockers and doors. No rush, no flare, just a path that saved energy for later. Lunch meant the far bench under the exit sign, where air felt cooler and the voices blurred. She slid a heavy aviation manual from her bag, the spine worn smooth. Pages marked with careful corners, diagrams of rotor, lift, drag, and torque turned the cafeteria into a map that led somewhere else. The scrape of a chair, the snap of a soda can, the clatter of a tray all softened when her finger traced those lines. One morning, a message dripped across her locker in a paint color that did not belong to the school. She paused. Thumb tap. Then opened the metal door, took out 2 books, and kept moving. In math class, a red 98 sat at the top of her paper, neat and small, and a crumpled sheet from behind hit her shoulder, then fell to the floor. She bent, set it back on the empty desk, and turned to the next problem while the room rustled. That afternoon, she sat with the manual again, the cafeteria light catching the glossy page. Her eyes held on a rotor sketch until it felt like a road heading out of town. The chatter faded and the thumb tapping stopped. In that quiet, a future shaped itself without asking permission. The career fair at school ran loud with banners, candy bowls, and promises. At the far wall, the U is Army table sat neat and quiet, pamphlets squared, chairs aligned. Emily Hart felt the familiar thumb tap at her wrist as she walked past the noise and stopped there. The tapping eased when Staff Sergeant First Class Jordan Whitaker greeted her and began to outline a path that sounded like order. He explained the WOFT route in simple steps that made sense. Take the SIFT. Meet the fitness standards. pass the background checks, then report to Fort Novacell for initial entry rotary wing. There she would learn the basics on rotary wing aircraft, live by checklists, practice emergency procedures, and keep a culture of safety that leaves no room for guesswork. The crowd laughed about something across the gym, but the sound felt distant, like it belonged to another life. She held the pamphlet with both hands and read the headings as if measuring weight. Her breathing evened out while the plan settled in, point by point, until it felt solid under her feet. The fair kept buzzing, phones kept filming, and the bright tables kept selling easy roads. Emily gave a small nod to herself and chose the way that asked for discipline and gave back a purpose. Emily Hart cleared selection and stepped into IERW at Fort Novacell with a schedule that felt like a metronome. The first phase put her in the UA-72A Lakota, where she drilled auto-rotation profiles, recognized the signs of tail rotor control loss, and practiced the correct responses until they lived in her hands. Crew resource management became second nature, with calm call-outs and shared scans, while checklists paced every start, hover, and shut down. The routine was strict, but the structure steadied her. Advanced training shifted the horizon when she was assigned to the AH-64E Apache Guardian. In the rear seat, she learned to serve as pilot in command, managing the aircraft and the mission, while the front seat co-pilot gunner worked sensors and weapons. Hours with TADS and PNVS taught her to identify what mattered and what did not, and to do it within rules that protected friendly lives. M230 bursts and AGM-114 Hellfire engagements arrived only after positive identification, clean backstops, and radio brevity that left no room for confusion. Life around the hangar moved on a different clock. Long evenings under bright bays traded sweat for calm, and small corrections from instructors slowly turned into quiet confidence from peers. She felt the respect that crews give to someone who holds the standard every single time. One night she took her flight helmet in both hands, stood by an AH-64E, breathing off heat after a training sortie, and understood that the silence she once carried had become the discipline that would let her lead. The call came near the outskirts of Aden, where a reconnaissance Marines element had gone firm inside a broken compound under small arms and RPG fire. 2 AH-64E Apache Guardian aircraft checked in overhead, wings level against a dull sky. Emily Hart sat in the rear seat as pilot in command, while her co-pilot gunner worked the front seat sensors. The first orbit settled at a safe altitude while they built the picture with TADS and PNVS, confirmed friendlies, marked threats, and aligned with rules of engagement that left no room for guessing. Radio traffic stayed short and clean. A JTAC, or the recon team lead, passed a crisp target brief and update, and Emily deconflicted airspace with supporting elements before setting ingress and egress points. The flight established a racetrack pattern. One aircraft eyes on, the other offset to cover egress and scan for new movement. Positive identification came first, then a short push to a firing lane with a clear backstop and no civilians inside the danger area. The first punch was suppression. The M230 chain gun walked controlled bursts along a wall where muzzle flashes kept peeking out, and the ground quieted enough for the team to shift positions. When a fixed firing point lit again from a concrete corner, a single AGM-114 Hellfire ended it with a dust cloud and no secondary damage beyond the target. Between runs, the crew managed fuel state and weapons state out loud, then reset to the stack and let the heart rate fall back into the pocket where good decisions live. Time stretched and folded. Both aircraft cycled to a nearby FARP for hot refuel and a quick check, then climbed back to relieve the other ship, repeating the handoff until twilight. At one point, small arms impacted the airframe with a hard tapping sound. System stayed green and the crew ran a fast scan. Cautions clear. Control checks normal. CRM steady and calm. The corridor out of the compound finally held, and 12 Marines moved in twos to a pickup zone that felt like an island. The last pass was not dramatic. It was a quiet overwatch while Boots crossed the open and climbed into safety. Dust swallowed shapes and the radios went calm. On the far edge of the site, Staff Sergeant Daniel Ruiz met Emily on a patch of blown sand and gripped her hand like a promise. The rotors faded and the lesson stayed. Discipline brings people home. The ballroom at Cedar Hollow Estate shifts from warm to sharp as the night drags on. Laughter turns thin and pointed, the kind that cuts on the way out. In the brightest spot of the room, 4 people hold the current without trying. Blake Turner talks big numbers, while Madison Shaw keeps her phone lifted like a stage light. And Colin Price nods with the cool of a man measuring angles. As Trevor Lang scrolls the class list for the next beat, they lean into Emily Hart as a storyline, making a public game of whether she will show. The circle tightens, voices rise half a notch, and faces tilt in to catch the heat. People orbit them without thinking, steered by volume, placement, and the promise of being seen. A few forced smiles stay on a beat too long, as if a camera might still be rolling. On the edge, Ethan Morales, USMC retired, watches the room the way habit taught him. Shoulders square, feet set, eyes moving. He clocks how the story is being pulled. Nora Bennett stands near the wall with old scenes pressing down. A cafeteria bench. A locker door. The moment she looked away, the air cools like smoke spreading low while screens lift. Whispers float off the corners, and the room seems to hold its breath. The rope of the evening draws tight, one strand from snapping, and no one can say what will break it. The ballroom trembles in small steps that no one can blame on the band. A few veterans ease their stance and share a quiet look that says, "This is not a truck rolling by." Out on the lawn, a strange gust skims the edge of the grass and flips napkins into the air. And the chatter drops a note as heads turn toward the doors. Staff and security move fast to set a standoff cordon so the curious stop well short of the patio, beyond the hedges. White landing lights sweep through branches and paint quick bars across the glass. The shape resolves into an AH-64E Apache Guardian easing down a controlled path. Not toward the party, but toward a clear landing zone already coordinated outside the fence. The plan shows in the way the aircraft never drifts near people and the way the estate team holds the line without panic. Inside, a few phones wobble as camera hands shake, and one influencer lowers her screen as if steadying herself. Rotor wash touches only the fringe of the garden, and the table candles flicker in place. The windows give a soft rattle and then settle, like breath let out slowly. In the ballroom, the air tightens with a quiet that feels almost polite, as if the room understands that something serious and professional is taking shape just out of sight. The noise falls into a held pause, and the night pulls the cord a little tighter, saving the surprise for the next beat. Beyond the fence, the clear landing zone holds steady under soft field lights and a tight perimeter. The AH-64E Apache Guardian winds down to a safe rotor speed. Instruments checked and systems steady. Grass shivers, then rests as the air calms around the skids. The rear cockpit canopy unlocks and tilts, and the night takes a small breath. Emily Hart, Chief Warrant Officer 3, steps out using the footholds and handholds the way she has done 100 times. Flight helmet tucked under her arm, unit patch, and a subdued American flag on her sleeve. She drops to the turf with a sure stance. The co-pilot gunner climbs down from the front seat and comes to a brief, crisp halt, and she returns the courtesy with a small nod that needs no extra words. There is no crew chief because the Apache flies with 2, and the scene stays clean and simple. Security holds the cordon while staff mark the footpath with small cones toward a side gate. Phones lift. Camera hands shake, but distance stays firm and safe as the 2 pilots move past hedges and into a quiet service corridor. The estate opens ahead. Guests part on instinct, and the low murmur thins until you can hear shoes on tile. Emily reaches the ballroom threshold and steps inside, the weight of a flight suit and years of checklists going with her, while the field behind falls silent. Canopy sealed. Rotors nearly still. The room takes in the calm she carries and waits for the past to meet the present. The ballroom hushes as the slideshow freezes on a yearbook photo of Emily Hart in an oversized sweater. She steps beneath that still frame in a fitted flight suit. Boots quiet on the marble. Eyes steady on the room. Old laughter drains away and the soft clink of glassware stops. For a moment, the only movement is the projector fan breathing over the image. Colonel William Hargrove of the United States Army crosses the floor in the Army Green Service uniform. Ribbons set in precise rows. Emily, a Chief Warrant Officer 3, halts and brings a clean salute. And the colonel returns it with the same measured respect. He turns to face the crowd and keeps his words simple. The distance between the girl in the picture and the pilot on the floor seems to close without sound. He states that she led an AH-64 Apache Guardian crew in support of reconnaissance Marines northeast of Aden. On station for more than 6 hours, sustained by multiple hot refuels at a forward arming and refueling point. She held overhead under small arms and RPG fire. Targets were identified through the sensors. Fires were controlled under the rules. And the corridor for movement opened when it needed to. 12 Marines came out intact because the plan held, and the crew did not leave. The room does not clap. Heads incline, shoulders lower, and a different kind of quiet settles. The kind that follows truth spoken plainly. The projector still shows the old image. Yet no one is looking at it now. What they see is a pilot who met the moment and brought people home. Respect fills the space where noise lived a minute ago. Ethan Morales, USMC retired, steps forward first. As the room steadies itself, he sets his heels, raises a clean salute, and holds it with the quiet weight of years. Emily Hart, a Chief Warrant Officer 3, returns the salute exactly as she was taught. Hand precise, eyes steady. Respect meeting, respect. The motion is simple and complete. And it changes the air more than any speech could. Wally Jenkins, USN retired, moves next with a slight hitch in his step and a calm face. He offers a few plain words of thanks that land heavier than applause. Then comes to attention as best as his knee allows. His salute is firm and a little shaky, and Emily answers it without a hint of pity. Only regard. The silence that follows feels like a promise to remember. Patrick O'Donnell, USAF, retired, once a loadmaster, stops at a measured distance and draws a slow breath. He speaks of nights when he loaded men onto aircraft that might not come back, and of the kind of courage that keeps a lane open when people need it. He brings his hand up and holds it, and Emily gives him the same crisp return she would give on a flight line. 3 veterans step back into the crowd, and the room absorbs what they carried. The camera finds the center circle again, and faces change under the light. Blake Turner stares past his own shoes. Madison Shaw lowers her phone. Colin Price tightens his hand on the glass. And Trevor Lang looks anywhere but forward. No one argues. No one jokes. No one explains. Respect has spoken. And the weight of earlier laughter sits where everyone can feel it. Emily Hart stands with the room behind her and the 4 at the center of it. The floor feels steady. The air held tight. The last echo of ceremony still in the corners. She says she received the forwarded chain. Read every message. Every bet. And nothing in her voice reaches for effect. The silence after that is clean. Like a table cleared. She adds the first truth without heat. You sent the invitation. The words land as if the lights dimmed. Not louder. Only heavier. Blake Turner looks at the floor. Madison Shaw lowers her phone. Colin Price swallows. And Trevor Lang searches the ceiling for a door that is not there. She holds their eyes long enough to make space for a choice that never came. She says why she walked in at all. To see if any of them had grown where it counted. You have not. Emily turns and moves toward the balcony. The room parting on instinct, as if a wave just passed. The doors ease open, and cooler air meets her face. Behind her, the hush deepens into something close to honesty. Faces tilt toward their own reflections in the glass and stay there. Strength. It turns out, is quieter than noise and steadier than pride. On the balcony, Nora Bennett steps close, voice small. Apology steady for the years she stayed quiet. Emily Hart listens and gives a single nod that honors courage shown now, without pretending the past did not happen. They breathe once together and let the moment stand. Then they head for the fenced landing zone, where Emily and her co-pilot Gunnar complete quick safety checks and climb into their seats. The AH-64 Apache Guardian lifts from the cleared field, turns on the planned departure, and slips away from Cedar Hollow Estate under a clean sky. True strength does not ask permission. It shows up, does the job, and leaves the ground better than it found it. Stay with us and subscribe for more military and veteran stories.